Test, test. Let me see. Test. Can anybody hear me? Check. Hey Eric, can you hear me? Test, test. Test. I'm hearing some sound now. Can you hear me, Eric?
I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. Great.
Here, give me a second. I'm trying to connect headphones here so I don't disturb on here. Weird.
Cool. So, do you mind that we're recording? I can stop the recording. It's just a default setting.
No, I don't mind.
Cool. So then we don't need to remember anything really. So I'm just going to mute the mic for a moment. Let me.
Okay.
We have pollen season here in Norway. So it starts in March and I'm allergic. So it's very it's starting to get very painful.
Oh man.
So how are you doing?
We're good. We're trying to stay away from the COVID over here.
So you're still in the US then?
Yeah, I'm in the US right now. We're in Washington, which is like one of the epicenters in the US. It's all around us. Like my mother-in-law works at a clinic and she's nonstop handling calls with people with symptoms and stuff.
Oh.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's
But we're doing good so far.
yeah, that's good. So I had a couple of topics.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Can you see it? Cool. So one thing that's not directly docs related, but I just thought I would mention it. So with regards to the Imba detour release, like we don't know when it's going to happen. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It might happen fairly soon, like within a couple of months. It might not. It really depends, and considering the COVID-19 situation, that also makes some things more complicated.
Yeah.
So yeah, who knows really? But we also have to like be careful with regards to the syntax changes. So there might, I suspect there might be some more syntax changes coming.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that's like worrisome with regards to the documentation. If we like start invest a lot in the web components syntax and then it suddenly becomes totally different. So yeah, I'm not sure about that part.
So what are some syntaxes that we've landed pretty much? Like did we land the prop syntax yet, or?
The prop syntax, I don't feel like we landed it, to be honest, because there's the options, which is not obvious. So the options don't work. And I think we need those before we like start making big changes. So let me find an example. see. So this is what I mean with the options. What's on the right hand side?
Okay.
So I'm sure we're going to keep the prop keyword based on the impression I got. So that's back. It's gonna stay there likely. But what's gonna happen on this side, I'm not that sure about that. Because is it gonna be an assignment, or does it make sense?
Yeah, I thought we had done the equal sign just for defaults. But are there other options is what you're thinking? There's going to be other options besides default, or?
Yeah, the thing is, like, if you start using something and then you find out it sucks or it feels weird using it a lot, then it might change. So that's what I'm worried about. So yes, one thing that's discussed was using decorators, but have you tried using it? I haven't tried using it at all, so
no.
Yeah, so I don't know is the option stuff going to be on the left hand side or the right hand side. So I don't think it should block us.
Yeah.
But we should be aware that there might come some more syntax changes that's going to cause stuff to just break in the documentation.
Yeah. Well, at least there's a bunch of stuff in there that's more based on Imba 1, and we could start updating it. I could do that with what I know. Like I hit some limitations with my understanding when I get into like async and await and stuff like that, or some of the more advanced programming concepts. So definitely that would be more up to you, or if JM Lankas wants to help also.
Yeah, he's been doing some stuff recently.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool, and I need to watch the one screencast he did. Still haven't watched it, but I think that sounds like a good idea. So you could just start doing that. You already did some stuff in the docs, and it looked like you had already started moving some things over from Imba.io, and I didn't really see those before much later. So I
mostly the basic section,
yeah. So let me just write that down.
I noticed a whole section went missing on imba.io. Was that intentional?
Yeah, I started removing stuff again.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was actually intentional. So if you have the link, it's going to work, but it's going to redirect you to docs.imba.io.
I see.
So just, so I don't know if you noticed that I don't have it here. Some of the links already are being redirected to this new page here.
I see. Oh, okay.
So that's one thing with the links, but I think I'm going to clean that up later. Not here, but on the imba.io side.
Okay.
But
let me open up.
Okay. And you could also just ask in the Discord whenever you're stuck with something. So Sindre is super busy, so you might get an answer or you might not, but I'm going to try to prioritize answering. So but I also have stuff to do, so it's easy to get stuck with Scrimba stuff and other things. So but everyone is trying to do their best though. So if you feel like something is like this is super difficult, just keep asking, and then eventually you will receive a reply eventually.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes longer.
Using users.imba.io is better for stuff like that? Or do you like the chat for quick stuff?
So you should do whatever you want, but to be honest, like I really like the imba.io stuff because the users discourse thing, because then I get it in my email inbox, which I check every day. And Discord, I have too many Discord stuff up, so it's like I have
it's just a barrage of
unread messages, so I'm just closing Discord.
Okay.
But if you use the users, then I could try to answer you, and that's also why I keep on answering JM Lang, his name,
Yeah, I
JM
forget.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can see them and then I go through them. And the ones I can't, I could try to ask Sindre to look at himself. So
Okay.
he obviously knows the most about the code base. So there are like
Hmm.
things I can't answer.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to set aside time and then just, if I can't answer it off the top of my head, I'm at
Okay.
least going to look at it and then pinpoint
All
you to
right.
the right direction.
And then in regards to just like the overall concept of building the guide, like, so I see the syntax section is kind of just like a quick, like I just search and find how to do something. But then you're thinking of doing more of a how to use Imba examples, like tutorials, right? Like,
Yeah. So the thing is, like, I have like a vague idea on some things, and
mhm,
I think what's going to work really well is tutorials and guides, because that's
mhm,
where I think we need the most time for new users. Like, you
yeah,
are going to go through the a language guide of some sort. If that's the
mhm,
syntax here, I'm not sure. So I'm not confident on these parts. I think those are likely going to change. So I'm very
mhm,
interested in seeing what other people think and what should
yeah,
we do here. Like, should we look at other people and then change it based on that? But the tutorials, I'm not saying these are the best ones, but I would like to have like a clear separation on, I'm a developer, I already have apps in production, and I want to
mhm,
try out Imba, and that's when I want the guide, basically,
okay,
if it makes sense. But I
yeah,
understand from the terminology, like some people would think of guide as in, this is where I'm starting off. I don't know the language, but I
mhm.
look at guide as in, I want to do something today, like
Help
get
me
it
get
out.
there.
Mm.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's good. Um, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So
Um,
I was like
mhm.
thinking earlier that should we maybe try to do some more research to spend some time, or do you want to? What do you want to do with this part? Like
With what part?
with the getting started and the syntax.
Um, let's see. I mean, I came from like knowing nothing over the last year or two about programming concepts. Um, so I've learned a lot just using Imba and learning JavaScript in general. But I think I like having, once I learn the concepts, then all I use is like the syntax. Like sometimes I forget because I haven't used something in a while. I'm like, how do you do that again? And I just search it and find it. So I think we should definitely have a straight to the point, like syntax section, like you laid out there. And I think that's fantastic because I use that a lot. But then for people like me, when I was like more beginner, it'd be great to have a different section that guides you through the concepts behind each thing, like classes and what are they good for and how to use them, um yeah, like, and tags, like, and the different features, and like how to structure an application properly, or um just good practices and stuff like that. I think Imba like really has the potential to just kind of replace um, other web languages. I mean, that's obviously up for debate, but I think that people can learn programming concept with Imba and just use that for their web stuff. Like they don't
Yeah,
need to really learn React or learn other stuff and web concepts from other things. It could be the first language for people, I think.
I definitely
Um,
agree. I really think so too. It works well, and if you learn the Imba concepts, they are actually not that hard compared to
mhm,
things you have to do in, for example, a React. There are
mhm,
still some things that are missing, like the data layer things, and the server side rendered bits are also not obvious.
mhm.
But yeah, I'm
Like
still not
even
sure
even
how
if
we
we
can slice
do,
it up.
I
Sorry.
think Imba might be good for. I mean, it's definitely a full stack thing, but it's a great alternative for serverless stuff. Like if people want to learn how to just do serverless, we could start there. A lot of people are going that route, and just simply how to use something like Firebase or um, things like that. So we don't have to do a lot of back end education up front with Imba, but that could come later, definitely.
Yeah, I would prefer to keep it like on that side, that
Mm-hmm.
the main target audience is front-end developers or
Mm-hmm.
someone who hasn't coded that much before.
Mm-hmm.
But basically someone who has an idea on what they want to do, but they know their part, or they want to solve one part of it. But from talking to Sindre, he wants to push it as a full stack language, right? And
Yeah.
that's the slogan. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how we should add that to the docs.
Well, we should. I think the full stack part would does not include many syntax differences. So I think full stack is more conceptual, right? Like the backend stuff is just concepts on how to use the language to do that,
Yeah.
rather than like this is new syntax for doing backend stuff. Like it's all the same syntax. It's just how you use it, right?
Mm.
So I think it's just a matter of like somebody that's good with that, like Sindra, to just go in there and build a whole guide on like major concepts of backend stuff, just using the syntax. Um, Obviously, I don't think I'd be qualified to do that in the next 10 years, but um, I think maybe just have a section that is backend oriented um, in the guide,
Yeah.
and maybe people that understand backend stuff could collaborate on that.
Cool.
Um,
So I'm not going to take that much of your time, but just to wrap up the sections.
mm-hmm,
So the other thing I tried to do was to try to split it up in topic based. So
mm-hmm,
that maybe here at the beginning somewhere, I'm thinking we could just say, hey, welcome to the docs. This is how it's structured, who it's
yeah,
written for, and then just summarize the different sections and then give you a straight link. So that way you could, for example, if you're only interested in event handling, how does
mm-hmm,
Imba do that? You could jump
uh-huh,
into that. So these are not the files or what's going to be there necessarily later. We're going to change this, but just the
mm-hmm,
grouping, like, and also routing is a big topic for
yeah,
and I think that's maybe how we could cover the server side rendering part.
okay,
if
yeah,
if we if we add a section on SSR here that maybe shows you some cool tricks, like for example extending the a tag for hrefs, and
uh-huh,
yeah, so that's those. And then there is this for people who are coming from other ecosystems. So let's say you're using Webpack.
mm-hmm,
From the discussions earlier, I don't remember everything, to be honest. It's like a while back, but
yeah, okay,
we decided to go away from Webpack, and I'm not really sure that was a good idea looking back
okay,
now,
uh-huh,
because we're still in the we're adopting the new stuff, right? So we can't really
yeah,
look backwards yet. So roll up. We need a way for people who are used to Webpack to learn about this
mm-hmm,
is the common things you do with Imba config or whatever it's going to be. And then for us also, for Scrimba at least, we also need a way to upgrade if we're going to switch fairly soon, right?
yeah,
So, and then there is the developer stuff, right? This is going to be the place where we send people who want to be Imba core contributors to the code
mm-hmm,
base, and also people who want to contribute to other things in the project. So we can have
mm-hmm,
that stuff here. And then just MISC. So I'm thinking that's going to be tooling related.
mm-hmm,
Maybe we should squash these two together, or I don't know. So that's basically the outline
okay,
I've been thinking about.
yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts to any of that. I went quickly through it.
um I mean, I like having this just summarized syntax, like with as little explanation as possible, or as succinct explanation as possible, just clear, straight to the point. And then I like the idea of having like more of a walkthrough type of thing, um, explaining concepts behind different major things of Imba or programming in general, but using Imba. And I think those concepts could be borrowed from React and Vue and stuff. It's like this is how you do this concept in Imba. It might have a name in the React world, and we just use that. Okay, let's explain how to do this in Imba. or how to do this or that, borrowing from other languages and different concepts.
Mm.
Again, I'm not very experienced with Vue or React. Imba is like my first language. I did HTML and CSS for years, and like I was just building static websites for a television network.
Nice.
And so I know all about HTML and CSS, but I avoided JavaScript for the longest time. And then looking for alternatives, I found Imba. I was like, oh, this is fun. I've been working with it for like over a year.
That's cool. I think Sindre was saying you have probably written the most Imba code. At least V2 maybe.
Yeah, V2. I think Alteo did a lot with V1. He was doing a lot of commercial stuff.
Nice.
And but yeah, V2 I just been dabbling with it, and I'm fine. I'm just doing little tiny projects. I'm just practicing my web concepts and things like that, and I can easily update it to a new syntax if it changes. Like I'm not stressed about breaking changes. Like I can easily go back and fix them, and they're insignificant projects. They're not like client stuff. So
I see. So are you a freelancer then, or do you work for a specific company now?
No, actually, I it's more of a hobby now. I used to work freelancing, but now I work as a missionary. I work in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just a hobby. Like I don't want to lose touch with web and stuff, so I just do it when I have free time. And
nice.
Right now we came to the US to have our baby, and the whole COVID thing is keeping us from going back. So if I have free time here, then I also just keep playing around and learning and contributing however way I can.
Yeah, I see. No, that's cool. I didn't know. I think you mentioned you were in Cambodia before.
Yeah,
if I remember.
Yeah, so I'll be going back there as soon as this whole COVID thing lets me.
So I'm just thinking, if you want to make any changes to the sections, just feel free to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
And regroup. So I think it's best we use the Gitbook UI, that we don't mix and match between GitHub for now, or just to get a better hang of Gitbook. There was one bug which got resolved, and I think it was because I was creating the outline and I had nested folders, and Gitbook couldn't keep track of that and somehow was creating new empty files. So if there's like anything missing, you can look on GitHub, and then either I think it's best to fix it in Gitbook, and then later we'll just have to figure out a way to get changes from third parties, and then because can we provide access to other people on like can they send the changes to us, or do we have to give them write access to everything?
I think well, I don't know about using GitHub to like send people can comment. You can say that too. You can tell people to go in and leave comments on stuff that need to be updated. Like I think to the right of any section, when you're not logged in, when you're not an admin, it will have a little bubble on the right side for like plus and like leaving a comment. So people can like directly comment on each line of the documentation. We could use that. So maybe in the introduction, we could say that leave a comment on anything you feel like needs to be explained better, and stuff. And there's those little rating things. Was that helpful?
So if I hit this one, what happens now?
I don't know. Maybe we get notified in the admin panel. Let me open up my admin panel. I won't be seeing your screen for a moment. Sure. Well, maybe let me see. Docs, Imba.io. Let me see what that looks like. Oh, maybe the comments is only for admin then. I thought it was for the readers. Or we
there's no worries. I was just curious about the UI. We could come back to that.
It says edit on GitHub, right? On the top right. people could potentially go and like submit like a pull request, but that can be complicated for some people.
Yeah.
Um, hmm,
We could ask someone to try to edit the page and see how it works.
yeah,
Because
we
I'm
can
curious about the sync flow back into Gitbook. So.
back into Gitbook from GitHub, right?
Mm.
Um,
But I
yeah, I
think it's
haven't
supposed to work.
done it that way. Yeah, it's supposed to. I mean, I can go in there right now and just tweak something. Let me see. Um, I'm just gonna go on the I'm on the introduction, and I'm gonna hit edit on GitHub. Um, so it says Imba is a programming language for building amazing web applications. It's heavily optimized for modern browsers. I'm gonna say greatly, just a little change or whatever. I don't know if you're really particular about that word.
No. I'm trying out the ice game. Sorry.
Okay, so I changed the word. It says able to merge, and then I can create pull requests. Create pull request, and
Nice.
then it's waiting to be merged. Maybe you can do that, or
Sure. So that's the default naming from GitHub. Bam. Yeah,
there
I
you
should have
go,
checked it.
merge. So now if I refreshed docs.imba.io, I don't know if it's gonna pull it right away or if it takes time. I'm not sure how that works. It
Yeah.
still says you see the change
I see it on the right hand side.
on Gitbook.
Yeah, I can look at it from the. Let me check. Just
Oh, like from the admin.
yeah, I was looking at it from the admin. Yeah, it looks so in the user view. Yeah, it's correct.
I go to introduction. Oh
Good
yeah, there it
stuff.
is. Okay.
So let's just try working on the docs, and then I'm not sure about one topic which you were talking about. I think it's a good idea. I'm just not sure how far we should go with regards to the explaining the basic concepts. Because, for example, like there's a lot of high quality documentation from Mozilla. And I know it's super boring to read that stuff, but if you just drink some tea and read it, it's actually good stuff. So, but like, should we try to reproduce that? Or should we try to change it? Should we try to reword it so that we try to write for normal people instead of being terse, concise, and try to
absolutely. No, I mean, I don't think we need to go super in depth. Of course, I think once you get the hang of the basic concepts, I can go to Mozilla's documentation and I understand how to translate that into Imba.
Nice.
But for like very beginners, like just thinking back on myself a year ago, some basic concepts would be great. At least, just how to think with components, how to think with like classes, how to think with stuff like that. Just very basic programming concepts that it wasn't easy to, like, I would have to go look at Ruby and like what are classes in Ruby and try to understand it from a Ruby tutorial, and then try to be like, okay, so that's kind of what it's for. That's the concept. Now let me go back to Imba and see like how the syntax translates. So like while I was learning the syntax, I was also trying to learn another language so I could understand Imba. You know what I mean? So it was like, I don't know Ruby, but I'm going to Ruby documentation just so I can understand how to use Imba. So I think some basic stuff like that, we could save the hassle for new developers.
Yeah, okay,
and just
so
explain it in Imba.
okay, I think I'm starting to understand better. So you're like thinking, instead of just teaching the translation process itself, we should also do the translation work for you and explain that, so it's easier to understand.
Yeah, I think you can explain it without even referencing the other languages. Because Imba, I think it should just, you don't need to explain other stuff if they don't know other languages. Um, so I think, yeah, like what is a class? What is it good for? And how can we use it? And just give a few different examples, or build a little project like you're saying here with like building a markdown editor or building a to-do app, and actually focus on not just here's the walkthrough, copy me, but actually be like, okay, we're going to use a class, and this is what a class is for, and this is how it's helpful in this situation. um do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So
um
we basically have to like show a lot of examples. And like, for example, one thing that might not be obvious is like functions or method blocks,
mhm.
and also like the ampersand.
Yeah.
That one is probably super cryptic for someone who sees it. Like, why do you have to, like, if the callback is not the last argument, why do I need this
Mhm.
ampersand thing, and why? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't even
explain
know what
that.
the ampersand is for.
It's
And
just for the compiler, so it knows where it is basically.
I see. Yeah, that's stuff that needs good explanation. I'm seeing also, at least in this might have been from Imba 1, under the function section in method, it has like a dollar symbol, 0, 1, 2.
Mm.
Um, like that, I'm not sure what that is about. Um,
That's
is that an Imba
it's
2?
yeah, it's arguments.
Okay. Because
So
like you
it's
can choose an argument within the method.
no, you can choose an argument within the parameters to the method. That's
Okay.
how I remember it right now.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing the code you're looking at. So it would be, it's just a magic thing actually in vanilla JavaScript. It's called arguments
Mm-hmm.
itself. And then
Okay.
when you write that number, you're accessing the
Mm-hmm.
arguments array, which is,
Okay.
it is available when you're
Mm-hmm.
calling the function.
Yeah.
It's just a shorthand for accessing it.
Okay.
I think it
Maybe
should work. If it
yeah, I'll
doesn't
play
work,
around
let
with
me
that
know.
later. I just have to understand it, and I'll ask you questions when I play with it. Um,
Yeah,
Another
cool.
idea that I got was Imba. Now that we have CSS in it, it's like it does the three things that you need for the web, which is templating, styling, and logic. So you've got HTML, CSS, and JavaScript mixed into it. That could be a way to organize the syntax section. With like, this is how you do templating and components and passing data through the components and all that stuff. And then you can have the logic stuff, like how to do all the JavaScript stuff, like switches and objects and comments and functions and loops and uh, classes and variables and all that stuff. And then styling. Um, and then for styling, I noticed that the compiler is using Stylis, which is what I was using to create my dynamic CSS. I don't know if you saw anything on that
Yeah, I was
on
gonna
the
look it
chat.
up now. Right now, you mean?
Yeah, if I went to like the Imba on GitHub, and if I go to source and compiler CSS, the very first require there is the Stylus library, which has some really neat CSS functionalities. I don't know if that's what's being used right now. It says Imba 1, but I'm just assuming that it's coded in Imba 1, but it's for Imba 2 also.
So, are you sure that this is actually Stylus, what you refer to as Stylus?
Stylus, yeah.
And it's
Well,
from the same person, Sultan Tarimo?
stylus.js.org. I would think so. It's coming from, it says vendor. Where's that coming from? Trying to install, like,
Yeah, so this is the same thing, right?
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm just making sure it's the right thing we're talking about.
yeah,
So, I
if
should
you go,
remember.
yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Um, well, if you go to their GitHub and you go to their docs, I think it was. Was it docs? No. Or tests. Where was it that I saw that? Well, it has a bunch of options. Like you can use semicolons or have no semicolons. Um, you can even create with this. You can even have like um, mix-ins and you can use CSS variables. Of course, you can use nested. You can nest your CSS selectors with this, and I tried it with Imba too, and it works. I can do nested selectors um, on the
Nice.
on the CSS comment block. So like if we're using this and we leverage all it can do, we can have a pretty robust CSS feature that you don't need SAS per se. That's why people like SAS, is because you can do nested selectors, you can do mix-ins, you can do stuff like that. That saves you a lot of time in coding, and then it just compiles it all into regular CSS and puts it in the head of the document in Imba too. So that's like wonderful. If it was done during like inside like um, the render method, then you could use dynamic. Maybe it doesn't need to be inside the render method, but it could be inside its own thing. You could pass some dynamic data into it. I don't think it should be like, obviously I don't think that dynamic data needs to be used everywhere in CSS. You could really slow things down more than you need to. But it's useful for some stuff. And now that I'm looking a lot of like what people do in React and Vue for like styling components, and they're using some concepts that reduce how many classes you need to use in your components. And if you don't need, if you only need one class, then do you even need a class? Can each component have its own selector and then just style it that way and use some dynamic data in order to inherit from parent components or a parent theme? And it's really interesting. Like Vue has really adopted that concept, and I think a lot of people that do come from Vue or React are going to want to do those same things. They're going to want to have components that don't have a ton of classes on them, or it's just based on properties, and they're more dynamic in a way. So like if I just add a prop of like enabled or disabled, then it will inherit classes based on that prop.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like you've definitely looked into Stylis and the CSS approach we're doing much more than I have. I was happy with the comment blocks, but I did see Stylis. We did talk about it when I was like a few months ago trying to get Sindre to add some kind of CSS support that was supposed to be better than the current one. And that was the CSS colon something, like background and then assignment. And I really just wanted something I could use to like just my style. This is my component, and I was focused on like what I could do with Vue. Like you have your template, you have your style tag, you have it all in one file, and then you export stuff, you start using it. So I think this is really good. It's out of like what I'm into. So I think it would really be awesome if you got involved in the CSS related syntax changes. I don't know when they're going to happen. I personally hope they won't happen in the V2 timeline. I hope they happen afterwards, because like we already have so many challenges that we really need to deal with. I think it's amazing. It's awesome that you're interested in the CSS bits, but I think you should like either consider creating issues for those, or like if you're going to push the CSS syntax, some kind of versions, I probably won't be spending time on it, but I know Sindre wants to do it at some point, and I convinced him that we shouldn't spend time on this now. So if we end up spending time on it in V2, it's fine, but like we have so many things that we have to do. So what do you think?
I'll ask this. Maybe you have some better understanding of like how it's done. I don't feel like we need much. on CSS um, in order to have some dynamic styling capabilities.
Yeah.
Because I was able to create a little library that I just import and like I have it, you know. So like what would it take to make maybe just something that you add inside the tag that it's its own thing separate from the render method, that you can just work your styling in there instead of a CSS block? Like how much work is that I could pass some dynamic data and just use the same syntax we use in the CSS blocks and use the same Stylis thing or the plugin that I made, the library I made, or
Yes.
it's not even a library, it's just like a couple functions.
Yes. So I haven't really looked into what you did. I eyeballed it when it was mentioned in the chat. But one thing I was thinking was you could either extend one of the base elements and then use that. But
okay.
I haven't looked at the code for the CSS, like the inlining style.
Mm-hmm.
But so I don't know like how we would expose any dynamic parts.
Yeah.
Like off the top of my head, and I like last time when I was looking at that part, I was just interested in just getting like a general overview.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been like several weeks. Like I even forgot that we were using Stylis. So yeah.
Yeah, here, I'll send you in the chat. Here, how do I turn this on? Imba thing.
Chat and
in the Zoom chat. I sent it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so you have a function there or a method, and it's being imported from here.
Yeah. Well, this is the old one. What happened to the new one? All you needed. Let me find it. Hold on.
Is it the Strimba bug?
I don't know. I've had that bug so many times where it just goes back to a previous state of my code base. I don't know.
It's a bug. Trying to track it down.
Yeah, I did notice. I try to explain it to you. I don't know if you read that, but like when I let my laptop go on standby, like I close the lid and then I open it back up, if I keep coding, it will not save that. So then when I open it again, it will be back where it was when I closed the lid the last time. Okay, let me see.
Yeah, I remember you had some comments, and I wanted to use a laptop, but I've been working from an iMac, so
okay.
I have to use.
I mean, I think it's happened on desktop too. Like if I just put it on standby, like Command Option Power, you know, it will put it on standby. Oh, here it is. I found the link. All right. Sending it in the chat again.
Let me see. There. Chat.
There's probably even an easier way to do this, but
yeah. So let's see. Let me make that bigger. So you have a method there, style.
Are you on the Imba? Let me see. Let me see your screen. Yeah. Yeah. So like, theming is something that's really useful. Like, especially if you make web components that you want to share, if they're based on properties instead of classes, users don't have to rename classes. They don't have to. That's something that's becoming really popular in React. They just have styling based on properties. They might inherit from a parent prop that people can style. Like if you looked at styled components, it's like a system for styling React components. That's a method approach that they use. It's that users can share components and then they can just theme them. They can just change the themes, change the settings, change like padding, change font sizes, change everything. And the components don't have any classes. They're just using properties and inheriting, and you can change those properties based on actions. So you can have like a modification, like a modifier, like primary, secondary, inactive, and then you can have a state, not a state, like an action, like active or disabled or things like that. And like that's all you need. You wouldn't need to use classes. You just use the props, which are which can inherit from like parent styles. So if we're like thinking of having shareable components because we're using web components, we should start thinking about what the future for styling is going to look like for web components. Because if I just have a static style on each component, like I have a padding of 10 pixels and a background color of tomato, if somebody imports that, they're going to have to tweak that like by hand. And if they cannot do any dynamic styling, then at all, then how are they going to inherit from their whole application style? They have to manually go in and change each component to match their application design style, their design theme or whatever. So I'm thinking this is a good solution. If we can have some sort of dynamic data, it'd be great for us to be able to pass data like styles based on props or based on states or modifiers for components, which it sounds to me like it's where a lot of developers are going now in the React and Vue world. From my little research on watching lectures and seminars and stuff on YouTube, like I'm trying to learn like what do they do for components, you know, for shareable components, and this is what I see them doing a lot. So I'm still learning about it, but if we can just get styles to be able to take dynamic data, that would be great.
Sorry, I was gonna say hi to Julian, but didn't get a chance. Hi, Julian.
Hi.
Hey.
Happy to have been able to make the second half of the meeting here. I'm just wondering, Eric, if I could ask, what would like this look like to you in the best case scenario?
What?
Like
what?
This page we're looking, or sorry, I'm not sharing screen anymore, but like your example with the styled components, like that index, like what would you like what's the best case scenario to that?
I think something that either is at the same indentation level of self, but maybe just something that says style that looks better, or maybe something at the right below app root, like
Okay.
another method instead of render, a method for style.
Yeah. So you're looking for something that basically has the exact same functionality as this, but without having to do all these imports that you have to do to get this.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it would be great if it was more native, since I noticed that the Stylis is already imported in the compiler in Imba. I don't think I need to import it like this in order to use it. It'd be great if it was just already dynamic. Like it seems like Imba already has all the components for it. We just got to make a small little syntax for it, so I can put my CSS inside it. and Stylis, you can make, let's say you made a tag for writing CSS in it that is dynamic, that inherits that is automatically modifying the tag itself. So let's see, go to the index.
Yeah.
So let's say if you, instead of def render at the same indentation level as def render, you have something that says style, that's for styling. Maybe I should share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Take over. Let me stop sharing.
Share screen. Desktop. Maybe he's gonna ask for permissions, and maybe I need to restart. I don't know. Let me see. 1 second. It's telling me to restart. Can I come back?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's macOS security. Which OS are you running, Julian?
I am on Mac OS as well here.
Are you running the latest version?
Yes, I believe so. I'm actually not 100% sure this is my work machine, so.
There's this security thing. You have to give permission, and then you have to quit the app.
Oh, man.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just gonna say dev style because I just wanted to look the same right now. If I could just put, let's see. This is a good use for me, especially for CSS
I can't
variables.
see your screen, Eric.
Oh,
Yeah,
you can't?
You have to share it.
All right, sorry. Going right into it. Can you
There.
guys see it now?
Yep.
All right. So like what would it look like for me? It's like being able to do this. And what I was saying was that in let's say this app root right here, you see how I'm choosing app root as the scope. A Stylis has a syntax for accessing global. I think it's like this, the global context, and I can then say HTML in the global context. So I'm breaking out from, I guess I would do that here because it's the one that actually works. I would be breaking out of this app root context, and I can access the HTML in the global context. So it has syntax for that. So if you did style scoped, then it would do like you could make it just go to the app root automatically. And if you didn't do that, then you could make it go straight to the global or even like root. And then from here, I could access anything I wanted within that app root or whatever. So Stylis already has all this built in. So I don't feel like, I would think that you don't need to do that much. All you need is to create a prettier syntax for this. That's in my opinion, that's what I think that would be needed.
I'm not so sure about that because I think the way we've implemented the comment blocks, it's very I think it's very primitive. It's a one-way thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how it would be in the runtime. So if we are and also what the performance penalty would be using the Stylis thing and interacting with it from Imba and then back and forth.
You think it would run at runtime?
Because what you just showed now is a runtime thing, based on what I saw now. So it's a method there in the def style, and you're supposed to be able to change that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's no longer static. It is actually dynamic. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to change it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's something I was wondering about. Like, I'm not sure how it works because, okay, so this is using this is coming from inline styles here.
Yeah, but
which is an Imba method.
Yeah, and that's a very simple thing.
Is this at runtime or build time?
You could do that at runtime, but it's not doing anything more than that, right? It's just adding the style.
Yep.
So talking to the Stylis thing, mm-hmm. and then to inline style, and then mm-hmm. back and forth. Yeah,
you think it would compromise? I think, yeah.
I don't have a good understanding of what the how much work that would be. I wouldn't mm-hmm. It's easy to think that it's easy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Maybe it's much more work.
Yeah.
Several weeks of work. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead. What's your name, JM Lankas?
It's Julian.
Julian. Okay.
Yes, and personally, I think it's a really, really good suggestion, but I also share the concerns that it might end up being quite a lot of work to implement, just because it is quite different from the style behavior that Imba currently has. Mm-hmm. It is a lot more powerful, like you're showing, but I think it is a pretty dramatic change.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what I can do. I can take this up on as a topic on Monday.
Mhm.
That's and then I will also preserve the recording, and I'll also try to edit it down. So like we could make the whole recording available, but I can also make a shorter version available to Sindre, which focuses on exactly what you were talking about, and share the links. So, but like, yeah. So I don't know if this is something, maybe Sindre takes a look at this and sees, oh, this is actually that's a good idea. We can do that much easier now based on what you were talking about here. I'm not sure, have you gotten any feedback from him on this or?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, okay, so maybe this is a straightforward approach, maybe not.
Yeah, I'll say again what I want. I'll try to summarize it. If like all I want is just a prettier syntax to work with this, there might be a performance hit if dynamic styling is used a lot. But I'm willing to use best practices to avoid that. So like I'm fine with the easiest way to implement this into Imba. And even there might be performance costs if people misuse it. But I think best practices can help with that rather than trying to overcomplicate how to implement it. But that's definitely up to you guys, and Sindra.
So you think that dynamic styling is something we should have, like the way you're using it currently with I can access this thing. This is set from Imba land into not just CSS variables, but more than that.
Yeah, I mean, CSS variables are great. Like here, I'm just using a theme. I'm grabbing a value from a theme and sending it to a CSS variable. And then from the CSS variable, it will go into all the components. So that's not going back and forth between dynamic data and the components. So I try to use it as minimal as possible, as least times as possible in the root component, and then pass it down maybe through CSS variables. But just being able to cross that bridge easily would be wonderful.
Yeah, cool. So I'm definitely gonna discuss this on Monday as a topic, or maybe you could also discuss it if you have time. So
yeah, it's a little hard while I'm in the US because your meeting is like at 2 a.m. for me or something.
Yeah, sorry. See.
But if you can pass on that little thought of mine, that'd be great.
So did this work, like this format? We were supposed to go on for 15 minutes, but it went on longer. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. No, I took a 15-minute slot every time, but I was available for more. So,
but could we do some follow-up stuff for this? Or sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, yeah, I was just kind of restate my commitment to the documentation and stuff like that.
Awesome. So could you document the CSS variables part, considering you have a lot more experience with styling?
Yeah, I'll expand on the styles page. That definitely has very little on it. And that's what made me think of this. Is like, well, it'd be nice if we had a little bit more, so I could add that to the documentation. Because this is like what I would love to see in Imba. But yeah, I'll just do a little rundown of how to use styling, and if I'll play around with all the features of Stylis and see if they work in the CSS blocks. And I could even let me see. So like if I do, all right, let me do app root. Okay, and then I'm just going to take this out. And then I can do button, or I may just be able to do that. Didn't work. I thought it would. Oh, it's
cool button.
web component. It's still not working. Yeah, I'll play around with this and see what features from Stylis are coming through. I played around with it the other day and it was working fine. Maybe I'm just forgetting something. And maybe I'll just add those to the documentation if that's already working. Is that fine?
Yeah, that sounds great. Like
Okay.
we should definitely try to clean that up and cover that. So
Yeah.
Julian, you weren't here, but we went through the layout in the beginning and discussed also the potential Imba release timeline. We don't know, basically. So if you want to help out with the docs, it's just go. Maybe you could give Julian access.
Yeah, I'll
Eric.
send him a link to have admin access and edit.
Yeah. So it's just we still need to figure out how it's going to be, but it's just make changes basically. If you tried out something, it didn't work, open a bug report. If it did work, add it to the docs. So,
okay.
Is there anything else we should cover in the next bi-weekly meeting other than dynamic styling?
Just maybe a recap on stuff that has been landed already in the syntax and what's next, so that we're more certain on documentation.
Yeah, great points.
Like
syntax. What's next?
Like right now, I downloaded the latest update of Imba on my local project, and I was messing around with props, and it looks like right now we're still supporting like all the syntaxes, like the @ symbol and the hash symbol and no symbol for accessing props. So I'm fine with any one. We just, I just want to get rid of the unneeded ones.
Yeah, it makes sense. So some stuff is still left over from experiments.
Yeah.
So hopefully, so I can also mention that. So remove what's not supported anymore or shouldn't be supported.
Yeah. And like I said, if I'm the only one using Imba too, like, don't worry about me. Like, breaking changes are fine with me. Feel free to remove stuff, like just drop it and do the new thing and just write it in the documentation, even if you just write a little sentence like we changed this to that, and then just so we don't forget about it.
Cool. So it looked like Julian dropped off, so I think I'm going to take a look at the issue he mentioned, and I will also forward the example you sent. So was it okay that I published this on the Imba YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Thanks for taking the time, Eric. So
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.